Thanks for giving us that flash run through then, Chris. Firstly, thanks everybody for taking the time out this morning and joining us to run through some research we've been doing lately on exploring communal repairs. We're going to be running through those insights through you over this session. If you could just jump onto the next slide for me, Chris. Just to give a shout out to my colleagues. Firstly, I'm Fraser Trickett. I'm a client partner. I've been working with housing repairs for a number of years, more than I care to actually mention. Also got Alex Hodgkiss, who is one of our senior user researchers and was a really big part of all of the work that we're going to be presenting back today. And we've got Chris Cottrell, who's our senior product manager for our housing repairs system. So first off, we'd really love to hear from you as we're going through this as a session. The more questions and interactive we can make it. You know, we're quite a friendly bunch, so please feel free to give us some questions. If you can hang on to those questions just until the end of each section, I'm sure Alex will give the nod, but just saying not to interrupt the flow too much. But we really would love to hear from you guys if there is anything you want to talk through. And if you do have a question, raise a hand to verbally ask questions and we'll introduce you. You're welcome to turn your camera on. We'd love to see all your friendly faces on there, but understand as it's being recorded if that's not something you want to do. And of course, we'll be sharing feedback links at the end of this. And for about third time this morning, this event is being recorded. So yeah, if you're not happy with that, now's your time to either leave, turn cameras off or whatever you want to do. But we wanted to just start off by asking you a question. Hopefully if technology is going to work for us here, there should be an input box coming up on screen. But we just wanted to ask kind of what was it that interested you about this webinar? What made you register? So if you can take just a few seconds just to drop something in, that would be fantastic. Can you see the responses coming back from that, Anna?
Not yet. Yet they're coming now. So yeah, let me know once you're happy to end, and then I'll show the results.
I feel like we should have had some wait music. Not ready for this one. I'll spare you all my karaoke. Cool. If we've got a view back now, if we can share those answers, that'd be brilliant.
Perfect. So you should be able to see it now.
I can't see the answers to that myself, but
okay. So sorry, anyone can see that? Alex, maybe? If not, I can read them.
If you don't mind, Anna, sorry.
Yeah. So we have want to see what's coming up for communal repairs. Want to see the subject because the subject is relevant to my job, and also opportunities and ideas to improve customer journey for communal repairs. Those are the ones we have.
Perfect. Thank you very much. Well, all sound very relevant anyway, and hopefully as we jump into here, we'll be able to answer those questions for you. So these are just some real rough timings on here. We're pretty flexible with this, but we're just aiming to end by 1:30 at the latest. So we're going to run through the research approach, spend a bit of time on that, and then into the challenges for the residents and local authorities that we discovered, and how some of those insights are helping to shape the product that we're developing. And then we've got some time at the end for some questions and discussion. And I think it's at that point that I hand over to Alex.
Yeah, thank you very much. So I'm going to be running through the research we did, the key insights, and I'm going to start off just talking through what we did and why we did that. So just to start, just to say, we're defining communal repairs here as repairs that residents need in kind of shared spaces. So shared building entrance, lifts, corridors, or building grounds. And kind of why are we interested in this area? So the first reason is that we know that like roughly 20 to 40% of repairs are communal. So any product that kind of we develop that has a positive impact on communal repairs could have a potentially wide impact overall on repairs outcomes. Secondly, we're looking to expand our individual repairs product. So our SaaS repairs online tool currently allows residents to log a kind of individual repair for a dwelling, but we're looking to simplify the entire process and to expand the product to include communal repairs. And thirdly, we see this as providing benefits for both residents and customers. So as I said, for customers, it could widen the benefits of our current repairs tool and the benefits that kind of come with that. But also communal repairs are important for residents. So it covers things like lights, but also security and security doors and lifts, which are important for residents. So we spoke to one resident in our research who told us that waiting like a long time for a lift repair just is a massive challenge for her because she lives on the 5th floor, she has significant mobility problems, and so climbing stairs is difficult. So it's just a massive challenge for her to wait for these repairs. So these types of repairs are definitely impactful for residents. Okay, thank you. And so moving on, like what were our goals really with doing this research? So the main goal really was for us to understand in more detail, what are the main pain points and challenges that kind of exist around communal repairs from people with experience of communal repairs reporting, and that includes both residents and the local authority. And the reason we're interested in doing this is so that we can get a better understanding of the unmet needs that both of these groups have in this area. And this can ultimately support us in creating a user-centered communal repair service that's both practical and effective. So moving on to the research that we did 2 rounds of user research. First round was with the local authority participants, and then the second round was with some local authority residents. So we wanted to really get the perspective of both residents and the local authority here to see whether there's any similarities or differences in the themes that were coming through in terms of challenges. The format was one-to-one interviews. These lasted around 1 hour each. And this really allowed us to have an in-depth and really rich and interesting conversation with all of the participants. The whole research process was really collaborative within our product team. So delivery managers, product managers, engineers, we all got involved in the research from end to end, really, from the interviews through to the synthesis. So it was a very collaborative process. Just for anonymity and just the way that we've set up the agreements, we can't give much more detail about the background, but just to say there was kind of geographical distribution across the UK with a range of different local authorities. Okay, so moving on to challenges for residents. So, one second, move my notes across. So yeah, the first challenge really that came through in the research was that we found that residents often initiated contact multiple times before the communal issue was fixed. So for example, residents might first speak to someone and they're referred to someone else. They might first call the lift company and then get redirected to the call center. Or they might have to call back multiple times because the issue hasn't been fixed or they've been waiting a long time. So just in terms of this particular challenge, I'd like you to kind of meet Sarah. This is the first story that I wanted to tell you about. Just to say this is a pseudonym and some of the details have been changed just to protect the anonymity. So Sarah, she's been living in her local authority since 2018, and she lives with her partner and a child. She enjoys living in her area, but she feels that the communal areas around her property could do with a little bit of attention. So like walking through her estate one evening, she noticed that some of the lights on her estate were broken. So she kind of began to worry for the safety and security, both of her and her family, particularly at nighttime. So she called the repairs contact centre about the issue. She then got referred to the facilities department because they said it was more of a streets problem. And then she got referred back to the contact centre again. And confused and frustrated about what to do and who was responsible for the repair, she spoke to her caretaker and eventually she emailed a photo to her neighbourhood officer. she noticed the issue was fixed within about 3 weeks when she walked by again at some point. So really the impact of this is that residents sometimes feel they're putting in a lot of effort into the repair. And again, this can increase call volumes to the local authority. Then the second challenge that came through was residents feel that some repairs take a long time to resolve and that the time frames are unclear. A lack of clear timeframes when reporting the repairs causes anxiety and frustration and uncertainty for some residents, particularly for more urgent and impactful repairs. This can also result in follow-up calls. In the research, the residents explained that their repairs took between 1 day and a year to be satisfactorily resolved. So there was a lot of variation. And this was impactful because sometimes the issues are quite serious in terms of safety and security. And sometimes this long wait time caused further escalation. So just as a second example, so Michael has been living in his local authority for around 20 years. He's pretty engaged in the community. He likes to support other residents in other blocks. He feels that there's not too many communal issues because he tends to take care of the space along with other residents. Last week, though, he did notice when he was going out for his morning walk that the communal door to the front of the building was actually smashed in. And this was this kind of a security door, so it was quite an important door to the building. And this was a worry because there'd been cases of people accessing the building who were not residents, and there'd also been some thefts in other buildings as well. So he called the contact center to report the issue, explained it, but he didn't really get a good indication of when the issue would be fixed. He waited quite a long time. The issue wasn't fixed and called back on several occasions. And eventually the issue was fixed, but it took nearly 6 months to really fully resolve the problem to the point that he felt comfortable that it was fixed. Okay, thank you. Next slide, please. And then the last challenge really for residents that came through was that there's often a lack of clear and accurate communication about the status of the repairs. Some residents felt that they didn't get enough updates while they waited for the repairs to be fixed. Others felt that the information that they did get wasn't always as accurate as they would like. And finally, some residents felt that they were not informed when the issue was fixed. So as the last example, Samira is a resident who's been living in her property for about 20 years. She lives with a husband and she enjoys having her family over to visit. It's a cold Saturday evening and she's sort of trying to keep warm in her property and in the communal space. Arriving back to her building, she discovers that the communal heating is not working. And so she calls the contact center to report it that day. She finds that the issue isn't fixed when she was expecting it to be. So she calls back several times over the next few days. The call center then tell her the issue was fixed when she felt that it wasn't fixed. And so she understood that the call center could only really tell her what the contractor had told them. So she definitely has some sympathy, empathy with the agents, but she felt pretty confused with the information she was given. She eventually found out that there was extra work needed because there were extra steps and it was resolved eventually. So really here, kind of a lack of communication, again, increases the uncertainty and reduces the confidence that residents have in the repair being completed. And again, it can cause more escalations to the local authority. So moving on to the local authority. So there were 4 key challenges here. The first challenge that came through very strongly was that local authorities are struggling with high volumes of calls for communal repairs. So we heard from the agents that the call volumes can be increased by duplicate initial calls, so reports of the same issue by multiple residents. As I mentioned before, follow-up and escalation calls about communal issues. also increase the call volumes to the call center. And so these high call volumes mean that the contact center agents have less time to complete other work in progress tasks. This was something we heard meant that they were kind of being pulled away from other work that they would rather be getting on with to prioritize. And of course, the high call volumes cause frustration and decreased satisfaction for the resident, who may be stuck in long queues waiting on the phone. So in terms of just some examples of some quotes, so one call center agent said, I just think the volume of the work is the most labor intensive thing. The calls we receive, the emails we receive, we get about 120 emails a day. So that's 30 to 40 per person. New repairs get 120 per day, and about 20 to 25% of those are for communal repairs. And then one of the comments was from the housing officer, and she was talking about how the residents call into the call center. And she said they phone the contact center, which is actually really inefficient, because some of them sit on the phone for 40 or 50 minutes waiting to get through to report their communal repair. So the second challenge for the local authority that we heard really through these interviews was that local authorities often struggle to gather the information about the communal repair first time. So some examples that we heard were where the resident wasn't sending kind of the basic information in the initial email. Residents may be struggling to describe the repair problem. And what we heard, this really results in extra workload for the agents, because they have longer calls or they've got to go back and forth with the resident. We also heard that there's particular difficulties in eliciting that information, maybe from individuals whose first language isn't English, or maybe who have like learning difficulties or maybe language difficulties. The most significant challenge we heard about, though, was the specific location of the repair. And this is more important for communal repairs. And without that specific location of the repair, the agent might need to contact the resident again. They might have to contact the contractor again. And again, this could cause further delays. It might also result in the contractor having to actually search the property for the issue. So one support officer was telling us about this particular issue about location. And she said, if we haven't got an exact location, that's a killer. The tenant will just say, there's a broken door outside my house at 8. But when you get to 8, there's actually 15 doors. 6 might be broken, but she's only reported 1. So the operative will come back to us, and then we'll need to add some stuff on. And then one of the call center agents said, it's time consuming if we don't have a specific location. Operatives have a lot of jobs to get through. Operatives might have to scout the area and figure out exactly what the issue is. For example, they might have to switch all the lights on and off to figure out which it is. And there's been issues when the wrong light has been fixed because there wasn't enough information given about the repair. Then the third issue, which I sort of mentioned a couple of times earlier, was that the local authorities we heard received many duplicate reports about the same issue. So residents might call to report the same issue because maybe they're just not aware that that issue in the communal space hasn't already been reported. We also heard that residents might intentionally report the issue, even though they know someone else has already reported it, to increase the speed at which that issue is resolved and to get more reassurance that the issue will be fixed. So there was definitely a perception from some residents that the more times they report it, the more seriously it will be taken, whether that's right or wrong. And again, the impact here is there's increased workload for the local authority, who are having to deal with the multiple duplicate reports about the same communal issue. And in terms of some specifics about what we heard, we had one agent who said, we get duplicate reports quite often. if there's a tower block without water because pumps are down, one tenant will call in, an hour later, someone else will call in, and then by the third resident, it's clear it's the same issue. And she also said that we do ask them to check with the neighbours to see if there's a similar problem with others. And then here there's an example from a housing repairs officer who was talking about a lift company. So with the lift engineers say that a lot of people are calling in about the lift. What's the update? They tell them they're waiting for a part, so they have to go back to the tenant and tell them what's happening in terms of that specific issue. And this one was quite interesting. So in this here, one of the customer service officers was explaining that if there is a communal repair problem, they'll get the contractor or the caretaker to put a piece of paper in the space to say that it's been dealt with. But if that piece of paper comes off, then they might get multiple calls about the issue. And so if it does come off, she said, if the notice is in the communal area has been removed, then we email them to put another note on. So which sounds like a bit of a frustrating process sort of for the agent and for the contractor having to do that repeatedly. And then lastly, one agent said, one customer service officer said that the effect of duplicates is really blocking the lines for anyone else that might need to call for an emergency repair because it's all the same line. But for the tenant, it's really a wasted phone call because we already know about the issue. And then the final challenge was around local authorities receiving many follow-up and escalation calls about communal repairs. Here we heard that residents will call, as I mentioned, if the issue hasn't been resolved or it's fallen outside the time that they've said or they want an update. And they might not have the information readily available to them. Yeah, it's the next slide. Sorry, just jumping over it. So basically one of the agents here said that escalation is when a repair hasn't been done and the person's called them in multiple times and we haven't helped them. It comes to me and I have to chase it up to see what I can do. And then he said it's all about helping them, their customers, it's about helping them. And then along similar lines, another agent was just saying, yeah, you feel really sorry for them if they've been waiting a long time and you just want to help them. So if they've been waiting a long time for the repair. And then this last this last quote was really more around third-party repairs. So like a lift company maybe that isn't organized, the repair isn't organized by the council themselves, it's with a third party. And she said that the resident, the main challenge is when the repair's not being done and the resident says, I've been waiting an hour already, and now you're going to put me through to a contractor. Can you not just tell me? And then the agent said, well, no, we can't because we don't have access to the contractor side of things. And she said that's a massive challenge for us daily. And then just to summarize all of that, this is quite a lot there, just to say that here we've just shown where we see the issues across. So for the resident across the top, the timeframes, the effort needed and communication about status, and how it seems that that is impacting on the follow-ups and the duplicates and the high call volume, and sort of where the kind of issues might be impacting each other. Okay, and just in terms of the focus areas, so my door is going off, my doorbell is going, just in terms of the wonders of working at home. In terms of focus areas, we're looking at 3 areas. So improving communication and transparency between residents and the local authority, minimizing duplicate repair reports, and exploring improved mechanisms to facilitate precise repair location reporting. And I believe I'm handing over to Chris.
Yes, thanks very much, Alex. So I suppose I mentioned at the start, I'm Chris Gotcha, I'm the product manager on our housing repairs product. So in terms of where we've gone from our research, our focus first is getting the basics right, like providing a straightforward, accessible way for residents to report communal repairs online. And to do this, we kind of widened out our existing reporting flow to include communal repair types and locations. So we ask a resident if the problem's in a communal area, and then based on the postcode they provide and their answer, as you'll see on the little video demo on the right, we'll filter out dwellings and communal blocks. So to ensure that it's easier to select the communal address essentially, and it's being reported against the right place. And then as we move through the flow, we show them quite a wide location of sort of problem areas, and that's based on some desk research that we did across tools, other repair tools, and conversations we've had with councils, and then providing them specific set of kind of communal focused repairs. I guess most importantly, once you've kind of moved through the problem diagnosis flow, as with a dwelling repair, you can provide some of that important contextual information and detail about the repair, to make it really clear specifically what the repair is, but then importantly where the problem is, describing the location. And as with all the fields within a product, we can configure those to send them to any destination really within your HMS or scheduler to make sure that information arrives in the right place. But following that, I should say before I move on to what we're doing next, we've built our communal repair reporting, and we're currently in the process of rolling that out so that tenants, leaseholders, and housing officers can report communal repairs to our product. And that's an interesting sort of, I guess, user group for this tool. The housing officer, obviously, we've spoken to many as part of this discovery. I actually think that it'd be a great tool for the housing officers out in their patch, engaging with residents. Put up the reporting tool, and it makes it super easy for that person in their role to report repairs on behalf of residents as well. Yeah, so we tackle the basics of reporting, turning our focus to the bigger problems that Alex was talking around, like around communication and transparency. Worth mentioning that in this round of research, we actually did put together some sort of early design concepts based on what we assumed the sort of problems were going to be, and we thought it'd be a good time to test some of these ideas. But we had quite mixed results. So we're going back to the drawing board now with our new understanding. I decided to draw from the design sprint method to kind of properly define problems we're tackling and rapidly generate ideas around them. So put together a sprint team. That's Alex, Fraser, myself, but also design and engineering colleagues. And that's actually what we've been doing this week. So this is coming to you hot off the press. The challenges that we're focusing on. How might we tell residents that issues are already reported? Looking for levers to reduce those duplicate calls that Alex has been talking about. How might we provide residents with progress updates on existing repairs and give them the confidence that things are reported and that they're in hand? Trying to reduce those sort of follow-up calls, which are a big part of that communal repair call volume. And then thirdly, how might we ensure that all parties are working from the same information? And that's like one of the key hurdles I think that we've discussed as part of this sprint process is the data about repairs and how that might range across repair type. It might be really challenging to provide the sort of automatic updates that residents might want about certain repairs, because that information might not exist in the council system if a third party is doing that repair, for example. So yes, we're certainly addressing the hurdles. We're also been looking outwards for inspiration outside of the housing space, like how are other industries, products, services tackling similar adjacent challenges? So on one hand, can draw a lot of inspiration from e-commerce when it comes to notification patterns. They're very, very clearly defined. Users kind of expect to receive certain notifications at certain times. So interesting inspiration there. Then on the other hand, products like Fix My Street feels like a very sort of tackling a very similar challenge to that communal repairs and visibility, but very much user powered. So been thinking all about that over the last couple of days. And we've got a couple of ideas that we're sort of landing on, which I wanted to sort of play back to you and get your feedback on. And the first of these ideas for tackling some of these problems is kind of a notification system that's kind of anchored around the service level agreement. So Obviously, we've got concerns about repair progress data, and we've kept coming back to that. But what if we could actually use that SLA timeframe as kind of the anchor for communicating with the resident about the repair? So when they report a repair, they'll get a notification saying, well, we estimate it will take 28 days or 14 days to fix this problem. That's usually, how long we take to fix issues. And then perhaps they get another message on that 14th day or that 28th day saying the repair should be fixed now. And we can ask them for feedback about that process, which is kind of all about keeping the resident engaged if they want that sort of engagement. That's our first idea. Second idea, we're calling it human power repair updates. But the idea here is that when a new repair is logged, it would appear in a sort of back office dashboard, which would be updated manually by a member of staff with the information they have at the time. So, for example, whether that's an estimated fixed date for repair, an actual date, or when there's a delay, etc., etc. And when those status of repairs are changed manually, that triggers out a message to the customer, so to the residents, so that they're getting sort of timely updates. And sort of feels a bit of an odd thing to do, to introduce a manual process, and that's certainly why we want to kind of experiment with it. But our thinking is that our insight shows us that the councils are getting lots and lots of follow-up calls about repairs. We can introduce a system like this, which is kind of managed centrally by one person. Maybe one person sort of managing this could sort of reduce those follow-up calls out in the councils. So yeah, keen to hear some feedback on that. And finally, duplicate report detection almost. So haven't got a sketch for this one, but the idea is sort of being that when residents are reporting a repair online, we could flag when that repair has been reported. Maybe try telling them when it was reported, when it might be fixed. And if that estimated fixed date has passed, creating a sort of experience somehow where they can sort of follow up online rather than follow up in the call. So again, trying to tackle that sort of tackle both the duplicate report in the first instance, but also that sort of follow-up call that appears to be quite problematic. So the three ideas that we're sort of that we're playing with at the moment. Yeah, but now I'm sort of going to ask you all some questions based on what I've just sort of talked about and showed you. If you've got any feedback now, I'd love to hear what you think of these ideas. If we have missed something massive, and sort of what we've discovered in this process and how maybe that compares to your understanding. So if you want to sort of unmute yourselves and jump in, feel free to, or drop a message in the chat. Up to you, really. Cool. Well, maybe have a mull it over. We're actually going to move to questions more generally now. So I'm going to hand back to Fraser.
Yeah, sure, can do, Chris. Just perhaps a more direct question for anybody that's joined the call from a local authority. Do those percentages match with what we described earlier for about the number of repairs that contribute to communal? And are communal repairs kind of a headache for you at the moment in your authority?
It's Tom at Redbridge. The numbers feel right based on where I've worked previously. I don't know the exact numbers from Redbridge, but they're going to be the right ballpark, I think. And yeah, I think the problems you've kind of identified there are kind of what it comes down to. A lot of computer repair stuff does tend to be stuff that's more likely to go out to third parties. So it does make getting those updates quite tricky. And yeah, getting those multiple reports on the same issue, but described in slightly different ways, because people are viewing it from different points on the estate, and describing it in different ways is tricky. As I just dropped a note in the chat saying I think that approach of fix my street pattern is a better fit to communal than the diagnosis flow we use for in-home repairs.
And Tom, just to follow up, do you mean the sort of more kind of community powered approach rather than a diagnosis question?
Yeah, I think so. Because I think like when you're diagnosing something, you're trying to get to a specific SOR code. Whereas I think with a communal repair, I think that's trickier. And I think actually what you need is to get somebody on site, because with a in-home repair, the idea is we're going to turn up and fix it the first time if they can. I think when it comes to communal repairs, I think it's more likely that surveyors are going to go out in the first instance, and they're going to figure out what the actual problem is and what SOR code needs to be raised. That's not always going to be true, right? It's a broken line where you send out a lighting specialist. But I think there is like that difference between communal and in-home, which kind of lends itself more to that kind of community-based, here's a problem that needs to be resolved, rather than trying to define a specific task to resolve it.
Yeah, that's really useful. Thanks, Tom. And I think we share that same kind, well, certainly myself, share that same kind of mindset on it. Anna, go for it.
Yeah, I think like you've identified the location as the challenge, and I think potentially there'll be more benefit to staff that are estate-based using this than just residents as well. I'd be interested in sort of understanding how the sort of feedback loop might work, and if it could create, you know, potential for a kind of ongoing loop because of that difficulty in finding the right issue. But I think obviously, like it's been discussed before, having the history for communal repairs will certainly help sort of minimise the number of repairs, you know, duplicate repairs being reported. And you know, I think that's obviously a challenge from different systems and everything, but it's obviously much more important when a number of people might be reporting an issue than just the resident in their own home.
Yeah, that makes sense as well. So, Chris, were you talking then? You're on mute. That was all.
Yeah, apologies. No, I absolutely agree, Anna. Yeah, and the experiment with kind of showing people the previous repairs, we want to ascertain like how effective that actually is at reducing duplicates, because I don't know, but I'm assuming it will be a percentage effective. And then I wonder if there are other things we could experiment with that happen kind of backstage to sort of, you know, for us using some sort of detection in code as when we think repairs are similar, we might not be absolutely certain they're duplicate. And then having some sort of established process where we can go, we think these two things might be the same, have a quick look at them to make, so that when there is that human intervention to de-cheap, it's a bit more targeted.
Yes, I think that could be useful, definitely worth exploring.
Just while everybody's thinking, just in case there is any more questions, something that I did just want to call out is that we're really open to working with councils on this. And if you think of anything after this point that you want to share ideas or thoughts on, we're not trying to be a closed book on this. Hence today's webinar really about us working in the open. So hopefully it's evident that we're really driven by that feedback and that true iterative design after feedback from residents, from users of the system, etc. So anybody that wants to kind of stay abreast of this journey or wants to join us on here, that'd be much appreciated, and we'd kind of love to have you on board. Oh, question from Jason. Chris, did you want to take that one?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, our approach that we're pitching out is that we will integrate with the HMS, your HMS one of choice when we you know, as part of our integration package. So yeah.
Jason, if I remember, Hall's an NEC customer. And I'm just trying to think back to when we last spoke, just to call out that we have had access to the sandbox environment with NEC, and we've kind of proven integration pathways in there.
Yeah, we are. Yeah, we are NEC, and we last spoke some time ago, and I think the general feeling at our end was it was a really nice user interface, and we really liked how easy it was to use. But because we've got quite a lot of integration from our current front ends into NEC and through to our contractors, that would really be an area we'd want to develop.
So yeah, in answer to your question, is we're learning all the time, in all honesty, and I think it's about understanding some of the, I'll call them localisms of the installs and configurations on there. But what we can say confidently is that from our experimentations with the HMSs that we've looked at, and quite a variety of scheduling software, is that we can do the kind of common service pattern flow in here. I think it's just understanding if there's anything different to that in your environment that might really throw a curveball in here. But as always, we're happy just to try and understand those. It's one of those things, it's never going to be unique to Hull or council A, B or C. So the more insight we can get on here and the more things that we can understand of that market space, the better it is for all of us. And so we'll continue to do that sharing and working in the open, and letting other councils that are working with us have the benefit of that insight as well. But yeah, pleased to say that on the whole, NEC have been pretty open to conversations and have given us access to their sandbox environment.
Yeah, okay, that's good.
Perfect. Well, it sounds like we're about there for questions. Just to repeat my call out again, I think in the slide deck that we'll share out at the end of here, there's LinkedIn profiles and email addresses and such like in there. We'll share the recording, but if there is anything else, please get in touch with us. More than happy to have conversations. It looks like Anna's kindly share those for us in the chat on there. Thanks, Jason. That's useful. But yeah, feel free to get in touch. Keep everybody abreast of our journey, and there'll be another round of this that we'll be sharing, and those ideas that we've spoken about, we'd love to update everybody on where we get to the next steps of that. Chris, Alex, did you guys got anything else before we sign off?
Thank you very much, everyone. Great to talk to you.
Good to share the research you were doing. Thanks for coming.
Thanks, everyone.
Yep, really good. Thank you.
Cheers, everyone. Take care. Bye.
Thank you.